Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to Wisdom Wednesdays, presented by Fuerza Experiences. We are so happy you are here. Fuerza Experiences started this Wisdom Wednesdays conversations to really come together with social impact leaders, social justice leaders who are also really passionate about the work they're doing and trying to create positive change in their communities, but also figuring out how to do all of this while preserving our well-being. So this live conversations are really for all of us to be in community and reflect about these types of practices, beliefs, or reasons why we're doing all of this so we can find what works for us. I'm really excited to start another series, another nurturing conversation today, because this space is really about honoring our ancestors who have come together and honored them and honor their work by sharing our wisdom in community and in circle and storytelling. And so this space is all for the learners that learn by doing, by growing, by listening, by visualizing. We're all here together for you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Manuela Contreras, she, her, ella, and I will be your host for today. I am the founder and chief inspiration officer of Fuerza Experiences, and as a leadership and business strategy consultant, facilitator, and experience creator, I started Fuerza so leaders can exist in a world where we can live in harmony with pursuing our passion and also preserving our well-being. Today, I am a Latina woman with caramel skin, brown wavy hair, and brown eyes. Today I'm wearing my brown glasses, my black headset that you can see behind my curly hair, and a yellow high knitted, my yellow knitted dress that's high necked, and a cream woven shawl that I'm wearing above my dress. And I am sitting in front of a cream Zoom background with a eucalyptus branch on my left and the Fuerza Experience logo on the right side, that with the hashtag Wisdom Wednesday. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, please check our comments below on the LinkedIn Live page, and also, and you will see there our community agreements and a little bit of reminder of how to engage in this space with us. Alrighty. So let's jump in. So something I love to do before we get into our conversation is engage and ground ourselves through a somatic practice. So for some of you that are new to our space, somatic practices are a really great way to not only connect to yourself through your mind, but really connecting through your body. So we do a series of these exercises to allow you to have some type of practical exercise you can bring back either to a leadership meeting, to your check-in, or maybe to your own personal ritual and practice that you're using on how to be able to find ways to preserve your own well-being. So I'm going to guide us through a practice today that can be a really simple practice that you can actually do if you're sitting in your office or just having a moment that you need to really recollect yourself because you're getting that wave of maybe anxiety or overwhelm or anxiousness, which is very normal. A lot of us feel that, if not every day, but especially as social impact leaders that carry this weight of the world, that carry the weight of urgency of wanting to do good and holding ourselves to a high standard. It's okay for us to take a break and take a moment to ourselves. So I'm going to walk you through this fun exercise. So imagine yourself, going through the day, you're feeling that type of overwhelm and anxiety before you start jumping into the next list, right? You open up your email and you see 500 messages there, and all you want to do is start acting, right? Going into doing. Well, before you jump into the doing, let's take a step back and do this practice together. So if you are listening to the recording and want to press pause and grab a warm cup of tea or water or coffee, whatever feels warm for you, or if you're live with us and just want and you have it available or want to go grab it, then feel free to do that. And as you're walking to go grab your tea or coffee or warm water, just notice every step that you're taking or the movements that you're making to go grab that cup of tea. Notice as you grab your cup from the drawer, you watch as the water falls into your cup, either with coffee or just some hot water, and notice how your body can start to slow down into food, and maybe you can see the tea start into the water.
Um,
Can you hear me?
it's going out a little.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, thank you. How is that? Is that better?
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. So as you step back to your desk or your place that you want to just take a moment to yourself, maybe that's outside and get a fresh air in between your meetings, start grabbing your cup. Grab your cup right in front of you, both hands in front of your cup, and hold it there in front of you. And now you're going to bring your cup up to your nose and really take in the smells of maybe your tea, your coffee. Notice that if you feel comfortable and you want to close your eyes to really be able to hold and smell it. Watch as the steam, if the cup is really warm and the steam starts gently brushing against your nose, notice that. And then place your cup back down and just hold it. Notice the warm, notice the sensations of the warm cup against your hands, and just be there present as you hold that. Now slowly take a small sip of the tea, a very small sip, just enough so you can feel the warmth right on your lips. And as you place it back down, take a deep breath and release. Now take another bigger sip of the warm tea. And as you take that bigger sip of warmth, you start noticing the inside of your mouth feeling all warm. Take another deep breath. And as you take this last bigger sip, you notice the full sensation of the warm tea going down your throat and into your stomach. Notice how your full stomach and belly gets warm. Notice your body starting to slow down and digest and take this moment in. And as you finish here and you hold your tea in your hand or your coffee or your warm cup, say to yourself, I am present, I am capable, and I am enough. As you release the cup, release your breath, and open your eyes again, you slowly re-enter yourself back to the place that you're in, and you slowly re-immerse yourself and start getting intentional action. All right. So hopefully you were able to join us, and I apologize for any of the tech audio. Hopefully you could have practiced along with us, or you can come back and try this on your own. And this is a really small, gentle practice that you can do on your own, that you can do with a team member before you do a check-in, or really just something that if you're in between meetings or you're starting your day, just a warm way to help be able to gently start your morning and your day. Alrighty, well, thank you so much for joining. I'm excited we got to do that together. Welcome back, and I'm excited to get our conversation going. I have the privilege to be sitting with a wonderful guest today. I was able to meet her when I came across the Unraveled series that she was doing with the Loveland Foundation, where she was talking about shame and how our work around shame. And I was like, oh my goodness, yes! Like I felt so so seen. I felt so heard. And she was really calling in how we can think differently, not only about shame, but how we can create more supportive work environments and habits for Black women through the Loveland Foundation. And in exploring her work, I noticed that she is starting these retiring superwoman movement, and I was so excited to connect and to learn more about it. So Ashante, welcome. I am so excited you're here. Please take a moment to just introduce yourself to our community and to let us know about who you are and what brought you here.
Sure. First, thank you so much for having me. I do not take lightly that you've allowed me to be a part of your space and a part of your community, and so I feel deeply honored to be here. My name is Aseanté Renee. My pronouns are she, her, Aya. I am the Chief Wellness Officer at the Axon Group. I am a licensed therapist in practice. I am an executive and performance coach. My goal is to help people create lives they don't need to escape. So you don't have to keep going away because you don't want to be in the life that you have. We help you create a life that you enjoy being in holistically and completely. Uh, for visual description, I am a Black woman with caramel skin. I have light brown locks. I have brown eyes. I am wearing an electric blue top with a red lip and gold rim glasses that kind of look like aviator glasses. You think about Top Gun. I have those types of glasses on, and I'm sitting in front of a beige screen. Thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for the work that you're doing. I have so much faith that the more of us can do this work, the more spaces that we can create, we can normalize this so this feels like something that we all are worthy. And we are. We all are worthy of achieving this. And so I would love to learn a little bit more about your journey of really what brought you here, what made you feel connected to this conversation, and how has well-being played a role in your personal and professional life?
Whew. So let me start by saying, um, when I speak to this work, it's not from a place of I am an expert because I have done the research and I have read the books and I've gone to the schools and I have all the letters behind my name. Nothing against any of that. Um, but I am a healer, not but, and I am a healer first. And I have experienced a lot of these things. And in experiencing burnout and experiencing perfectionism and experiencing overwhelm and experiencing self sabotage and experiencing self doubt, there aren't a lot of resources that are specifically for melanated women as it relates to how to navigate that. Like there are a lot of self-help books out there and there's a lot of really great information, but oftentimes it's not through the lens of our particular and specific experience. And so we often have to contort ourselves into other people's stories in order to make something make sense to us. And so I wanted to create spaces and invite people into spaces it where we are centered, where it begins with our story and our language and our tone and our dialect. Um, and so then that way we can kind of just be centered in that way. And so one of the questions that I often ask myself as I'm going through different seasons of my healing journey is I can't be the only one struggling with this, right? Because that's the first thing you think, right? I'm the only one. I'm the only one going through this. I'm the only one going through this again. I'm the only one in my big age who should have already learned the lessons that I'm supposed to have learned. uh, how can I be here again? And I'm like, I can't be the only person experiencing this. And so then I would go do some research to see where I can get some support. And it was often very limited. And so I'm of the mind, if I don't see it, create it. And so my wellness journey has honestly, or the way that I got here has been my own wellness journey, my own victories, my own breakthroughs, my own breakdowns, my own relapses, my own, all of that. And then just documenting that in a way to normalize the healing journey. Because let's be honest, the healing journey is not some kumbaya, beautiful flowers, namaste moment. Like it's hard, it's painful, it's frustrating, it's annoying at times. There's some days you're just like, I just don't want to heal. I just don't want to be a better version of me today. And that's okay. And so normalizing the healing journey, normalizing the healing experience. If you think about anything that has to grow, it has to break out of the thing that once protected it. And that breaking out of and that breaking through is hard, and it is work. And sometimes you don't break through in one try. Sometimes it takes a few times to break through that protective thing. Some days you don't want to break out of it. And so just trying to normalize that for people, and so they don't we don't add shame on top of I'm not healing right? I'm not on my healing journey correctly, or I'm still struggling with X, or I'm still growing through Y. I just want to normalize that for people. And so that's kind of what brought me into this space, to help people understand the way that you're experiencing your healing journey, your well-being journey, your self-care journey, whatever words resonate for you. That's okay.
Mhm. Oh, so powerful. And I think that that sincerity is so evident in how you do your work and how I mean what I was drawn to in listening to your conversations, because it I love how you started, like, I'm not an expert because of my accolades and everything I've accomplished. I also believe that our lived experience tells us so much about who we are and how we can move through the world and how we can support others. And there's so much that we can learn just from our own intuition and our own journey without having to pick up a book, without having to read an
Hmm.
entire research. And we take so much of this data to have to validate our experiences, to have to make, and don't get me wrong, it's helpful to have that sort of, oh, okay, now good, you put it into words. Sometimes
Hmm.
that, like those books really is was, oh, okay, yes, you were able to verbally describe what I've been feeling for so long, but that doesn't take away that that feeling was still there. And so
Hmm.
having, I love you calling us into name it the way that you need to name it, but know that your truth is all that matters, that your experience is the most important thing. And when we can surround ourselves with people that can understand that and can allow us to fully experience and go through that cycle of healing in a way that feels okay for us, like that's so powerful. I'm seeing a comment here of, we are expected to cohort ourselves into other people's stories. I felt that. Mhm.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's frustrating, right? It's
Mhm.
frustrating to be like, that's kind of my experience, but well, that one piece is my, well, okay, well, thanks for the little part that you gave me. It's like being really, really hungry and then being offered like an apple. And you're like, I thank you for the apple, but I really would have loved a full meal. Um,
Mm.
and so I just want to create spaces for us to have the full meal.
Yeah, I love that. And so much of what I talk about, with our community is sometimes you don't know what you need until you start really thinking about, you don't know what to ask for until you start thinking about what you need. And it takes
Hmm.
it takes a little bit time for us to really understand what we need before we
Hmm.
can start asking for that.
Hmm. And that gets to change depending on
Mm,
what season you're in. I think that's another thing, especially for melanated women. We don't think we have the option of choice or pivoting. How often have we said, "Well, I made this decision and I just have to stick with it." You
mm,
made the decision in the moment with what you knew, with the information that you knew. It was the best decision you could make in the moment. And then situations change, circumstances change, knowledge changes, growth happens. And you get to go back to that decision that you made and ask, is this decision still serving me? Is this decision still keeping me safe? Is this decision still doing what I needed it to do? And if the answer is no, you get to pivot that decision. And that's okay. We seem to be the only ones that are like, nope, I got to stay in, even if it was a bad one. I got to stay here. Or you don't. And I don't want to minimize it, because I know that's much easier said than done. And
mhm,
so, if nothing else, if you're hearing this, give yourself permission to just. I'm asking you to give yourself permission to just reevaluate your decisions and see
mhm.
which ones could use a little zhuzhing up, a little revamping, a little pruning, a little spring cleaning.
Yes, yes. I love that. I feel like that goes really nicely into the retiring the Superwoman movement, actually, because this is incredible. I mean, let's start with that. I know there's so much richness we can talk about, but do you mind grounding us in what this movement is? Like, how did it start, and what do you really want people to understand and learn about this movement?
Sure. Well, surprise, surprise, it started from me being burned out. um, I had a really hard 2023. The end of 2023 was it was a lot. I wish 2023 would have just quietly quit without bringing me into all the drama that it had.
Mm,
And so I think for quite a few of us, it was a really hard year. And as I was starting this year, um, I was going back into my traditional routine. I'm like, okay, I got to start planning my goals. I got to think through the year. I got to strategize. And then just like my body, my heart, my mental state is not in a place where I can handle that in this same way right now. And I was still trying to hold all these other responsibilities that I had in all these different areas of my life. And I wasn't taking care of me, which means
mm,
the people that were asking me to support them or be there for them, they weren't even going to get the Ashanté that they were hoping to get. My clients weren't getting the me that they signed up for. My friends weren't getting the me that they were used to. My family wasn't getting the me that they were accustomed to having because I wasn't enough of the me that I needed to be. And it really
mm,
got me to thinking about like why do I do this? Because we only do what serves us, be it healthy or unhealthy. If it serves us in some way, we do it. And it really got me thinking about my value, and specifically for melanated women and for those of us that have come from enslaved histories. And I'm not going to say cultures or enslaved lineage because it's not our lineage, it's history. That's not who we are, it's something that happened to us. And so I'm very
mm,
intentional about naming people with enslaved histories. Our value was only rooted in our output, in our labor, in what we could produce, in what we could create. Quite literally, like we weren't human. Our value was only connected to what we could give out external to us. Um, and as you know, even though these enslaved institutions technically ended in one capacity, or we would just say they, evolved into something else, that
right.
mindset of my value is connected to what I can produce. It is connected to my output. It is connected to my labor. It is connected to who I can serve. That hasn't gone anywhere. And so, quite often, many of us end up being the martyr, the strong friend, the fixer, the go to, the one that can handle all the things, the planner, right? And we wear that unofficially or officially sometimes as a badge of honor. And that badge of honor is killing us. And so, retiring Superwoman is about reclaiming our value, giving ourselves permission to believe that our value is intrinsically based in the fact that we are just breathing, we are just here, and we don't have to produce anything for anyone else for that value to be real to us, even if it isn't to anyone else. Our value gets to come from us because we are here, period. End of sentence, hard stop. And so the Retiring Superwoman campaign is literally about creating events, free events at that, where women can come experience love, can come experience kindness, can come experience healing, can come experience community, can come experience educational opportunities, and at no cost to them, because I'm a firm believer that finances shouldn't be a barrier to people experiencing their healing journey, because right now healing equity is a real thing, and unfortunately, being able to heal and pause is a privilege that some people in our community don't have. And so I try to remove that barrier through my nonprofit, the Susu House. And so the Retiring Superwoman campaign is part of that. So all the events that we do are free to the community, and we pay all the practitioners their full rates. So they can feel honored with what they do. But that's what Retiring Superwoman is, just creating spaces where we all can feel loved on and valued and appreciated, and we can start to reclaim that value and that love in ourselves, and provide some psychoeducation around the ways and the moments and the times where we're possibly putting our own capes back on us. It's not
Mm,
always everyone else. Sometimes we're secretly throwing that cape back on as well because we kind of like those identities, and getting honest about that and not trying to solve all of it at one time because I don't think that's feasible. And I also think like in healing journeys, like I gotta fix all of me, or you don't, or you can just identify one area and start to get curious about that one area. And so we create spaces for
Oof. Ooh, we are so, so
that.
lucky. This world is so lucky to have this movement. And just to be clear, to make sure that, every all our community knows, are these events happening virtually? Are they
Mhm.
mostly in New York? Where could I mean, we'll have the information so people can access the events and everything on the event page, but just in case, so people can know more about where to find these spaces.
Sure. So you can go to retiringsuperwoman.com and we update the events. We have both in person events. Right now, most of them are in New York. And then we also have virtual events that everyone can attend no matter where we are. We actually are doing a 250K fundraising raise. So next year, I can do free events across the nation. And let's
Mm,
be honest, that's really not a lot of money because we've seen some people get 1.2 million, 4 point, like we've seen the millions come in to different groups um, when it's connected to criminal justice reform or reproductive rights or education, and nothing against any of those. I think those are absolutely necessary. I've worked in some of those spaces before, and I think healing equity is one that people really don't talk about, because if we get all these other things reformed, but if people aren't whole and healed, we're just going to recreate the same thing over again. And
right.
so my goal and my purpose is like, if you have $5, donate. If you have $20, donate. If you have $2, donate. If a million people donate $2, we have a lot of money. If you've been impacted by a superwoman, and I know every last one of us have, because
Mhm.
we've all been connected to some melanated woman who has been a superhero, been a superwoman in our lives. Donate first, go tell her thank you. First and foremost, when this finishes, go tell her thank you. And then
Mhm.
second, donate. And you can do that through the website so we can continue to keep these events free for the community, because that's something that we will not compromise on.
So, 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 so special. Wow. And what I hear you say, talk about, I mean, as we talk about the cycle of so much of the oppressive systems that are affecting us, right? And health equity being such a critical part of this work that we're not hearing about. So I love you calling us into really thinking about. But what I hear also is health equity feels like it is a preventative way of being, as well as a way of recovering and supporting
Mhm.
us. And if we can start really thinking about how to build these healthier relationships with our mind, with our body, with productivity, which is such a great
Mm,
way for us, I mean, to start in, so much of that is going to move us to be able to create these environments that are going to look different, that are going to feel different, but that will help us hopefully not having to continue to go backwards and try to fix everything that's happened, but also allowing us to create stronger foundations for us to move forward from.
mhm.
And I love that, you're talking about productivity is what I hear. And you said our value, and we had someone really call that out. I love that. Oh, sorry. Yes, I'm glad we're seeing that. The
I
love for
love
the free
that.
events, but the value, that my value is rooted in what I can produce, and that's real and an important connection to the historical roots. Absolutely. And for a lot of us that are trying to build, that's a lot of the work that Conversa is really creating space for, is how do we create a healthier relationship with productivity? You and I were talking about this, when we have been so rooted in the belief that our value really is only connected to what we put out, what we produce, as you shared.
Mhm.
Where do you think we need to start shifting that? How do we start shifting that mindset?
Can you still hear me okay?
Yes, I
Or
can
did
hear
my
you.
internet went out? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Okay. Um, so I'm really big on words and what words actually mean versus how we use words.
Mm,
Yes. It's a weird delay happening.
go ahead, I can hear
Can
you.
you hear me? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this with my hands and see me moving.
Yes. I'm gonna go like
No.
this.
Okay. Okay. Great. Um, I guess all the computers just needed to catch up to what we're talking about. So I love words, because there is something about what words actually mean versus how we use words. And the word productivity, resilience is one of them, but that's a whole other conversation we can have at another time or later in this one. But productivity is another one of them. And so, by definition, productivity means achieving or producing a significant amount or result, right? It's creating a lot of something. I just think often, so I don't think that definition is incorrect, but I think sometimes we're incomplete in how we use it,
Mm,
because we think of output oftentimes for others or output for a result, that will garner something physical towards us, be it money, accolades, validation, confirmation, right? What if we think about productivity and the achieving or producing a significant amount or result as it relates to our healing?
mhm,
How productive am I being as it relates to my healing? And I name that because oftentimes we already know how to do something. We have the mind memory and the muscle memory to do something. We just have to pivot it to a different area of our lives. So, for all my fellow type A and recovering perfectionist people out there, we are really good at being productive when it comes to creating this list, getting this project completed, managing X, Y, and Z. We can use that same energy to an extent, um, as it relates to our discipline on our healing journey and how to protect ourselves and protect our boundaries and start to get curious about what we need. Oftentimes, being productive, again, like looks like the physical output of a thing. And I want to invite people to think about productivity looking like getting extremely curious about who you actually are and what you actually need in the world.
mm,
What do I need today? What is important to me today? What does my body actually feel like today? Where do I feel stiff? Where do I feel aches in my body? Where do I feel tension? Where do I feel excitement? Where do I feel warmth? Where do I feel cold? Um, and so I want to invite you to expand your definition of productivity, not to just be something that's connected to capitalism, but also, or and also, have it connect to care, your personal well being.
oof, absolutely. And it takes a little bit of time to shift that, right? When everything around us is constantly making us feel as though the way that we can like I think productivity is so connected to how we can qualify or we can measure how much we've done or achieved, and that's our value and worth. And the
Mm-hmm.
reality, if we give ourselves, as you called us in earlier, if we give ourselves the liberty to say, we actually get to choose how we
Mm-hmm.
value ourselves. We actually
Mm-hmm.
get to choose how we define our worthiness and our value to this world, and not by what is in our resume or not by in, and not to discredit the amount of work that you've absolutely earned and you've put into all of that. But how do we go bigger than that? What if our
Yeah.
biggest value is, how do you feel when you go to bed at night? How do you
Mm-hmm.
feel when you wake up in the morning?
Mm-hmm.
Are you getting that nurture and support from your community consistently? Or is there's consistent heaviness in navigating and just feeling like you're just trying to survive? And so many of
Mm-hmm.
us have felt as though that is the only way to be. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
also speaking as a recovering perfectionist and someone that went through really deep cycles of burnout, which also is why I started this work, because I didn't want anyone to experience that. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, the reality is that a lot of us are, and may need to experience that to understand. But our hopes is that you don't need to get to that point, that you
Mm-hmm.
can learn in small movements, that this is a way for you to start finding strong more supportive ways of existing that don't feel so heavy every
Mm-hmm.
single day.
Mm-hmm. I love that you named often in productivity, we have a measure, right? You can measure productivity. And so oftentimes I get asked the question, how do you measure healing?
Mm,
Um, and so here's something I want to offer to people. Healing looks like incremental progress. And incremental progress doesn't necessarily mean you don't do the thing that you were trying to stop doing right off the bat, right? Incremental progress can look like you exhibit a particular type of behavior, and then 2 months after you experience or you exhibit that behavior, you think about it and you get curious. And you're like, huh, oh, that's what they were talking about in terms of the thing that I need to work on. Or that's the thing that I realize, oh, that's the self sabotaging behavior, or that's the thing that leads to burnout, or that's the thing that where my perfectionism is showing up. And you realize that about 2 months after the behavior was exhibited. And the next time you realize it about a month later. And the next time takes you about 2 weeks. And then the next time takes you about 4 days. And then the next time, as you are engaging in the behavior, you realize, oh my God, I'm doing that thing right now. And then you still choose to do the thing because you're like, I haven't fixed it. I'm just aware now. Oh, this is the thing that I'm doing. I am still choosing to be petty, but I am aware this is what they meant when they talked about I'm being. Oh, I'm still actively going to do it though. And then maybe the next time or the time after, you're in the middle of it and you choose to respond differently. And then you start to
mm,
consistently choose to respond differently. But I named about 7 times where you're engaging in that behavior. That doesn't automatically immediately mean that you've changed the behavior because it's a process. And those 7 times can take 6 months, those 7 times can take 10 years. But that's how you measure healing. You start to respond differently to some of the same triggers that are showing up in your life. And I think oftentimes people get frustrated when they are working on something. It's like, I worked on this thing, but it keeps showing up. Yeah, but now you're acting differently towards it.
mm,
That's growth. That's healing. You wouldn't have even considered another perspective before. That's growth. That's healing. You wouldn't have even thought about making that boundary. You wouldn't even considered reflecting on the situation before. That's growth. It's not necessarily always the output that comes from a situation. Sometimes it is just your reflecting on it, your awareness of it. That is the first and most important part of healing because you can't heal what you're not aware of. And so I just want to expand people's definition of how long it takes for something for us to heal through something or work through something. That's why I don't often like to say we're healed, like ED. I like to say healing, ING, because
yes.
there's stuff that I'm like, oh, I have that figured out. And then something new happens, and I'm like, oh, this is that
Oh,
next level of that. Oh, okay. It got me. It got me that time. But you know what? I was aware, and that's still growth. That's still okay. For my elderly millennials that are like me, if you played Super Mario Brothers, you got some of those extra little power pack things. You're just going to the next level. It doesn't mean it's not going to be
mm,
difficult. It doesn't mean you might not have to start over a few times. Now you're learning how to navigate that level a little bit differently. And that's what the
mhm,
healing journey looks like. And so that also inviting you and giving yourself permission and grace to, let that timeline be a little bit longer than you think it needs to be. Because we spent our entire lives being a certain version of ourselves. We're not going to fix ourselves in a night.
mhm. Oof, yes, absolutely, and I love that. I honestly, one of the things that changed my life so much on this healing journey is noticing that healing isn't linear. I think
Mm-mm.
we've been conditioned so much to think, and I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I'd been in therapy for, almost 12 years now. And throughout all of therapy, it was consistently what I was feeling. I was like, but I went through that. I experienced that. Like, why is this happening again? Why? So I love that you're naming this so much. And what allowed me to shift my perspective is when someone told me, Manuela, healing isn't linear, it's cyclical.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going to continue to happen in cycles because it's part of human nature. It's going to happen again. But I love what you're saying. It's everything you're saying. It's But when it happens once again, it hopefully you have that awareness, you have a little bit of other tools, maybe new boundaries, and it feels a little smaller and smaller. And it may take years for that wound,
Mm-hmm.
that trauma, that pain to fully close, if any, if ever close, right? It's always going to maybe exist there a little tiny, but it's okay because you've gone through the cycles of really being able to manage. And if it flares up and it gets stronger, you now have built those tools and understanding and awareness. So that's what I love
Mm-hmm.
about that visualization. I feel as though the healing of ourselves, of that wound, the more we heal, the wound starts to get smaller slowly over time. But the awareness, the
Mm-hmm.
healing, the love, that gets bigger.
It
That starts to
does.
get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's really what helps nurture us and helps us to understand it. But oh yes, to it's not being easy. This is
It is
not.
not. If it was
Oh.
easy, everyone would heal. This is why you're walking around with a lot of people who are just, ugh, because healing is hard work. Like it's not for the faint of heart. And so the fact that you're even trying, that you're even on this healing journey, speaks to your courage, speaks
Mhm.
to your power, because it is much easier to stay in the familiar than
Mhm.
to try to evolve.
Mhm. Oof, absolutely. And there's a courage is another one of those words that has so much weight, but you can find it the way that it looks for you. And Donita shared this comment in the chat here. I love the idea of changing the timeline. Urgency is the
Mhm.
enemy of healing.
Hi, Donita.
Absolutely, yes. Donita is so special. She joined us on a previous conversation, and we talk about this often as a dear friend. And you know what this reminds me of is our conversations we've been having around boundaries. And
Mm,
urgency, feeling like the enemy of healing, just feeling like that constant. I always use that visualization. Sometimes I feel like I'm swimming against a current when
mhm.
you're on that path of healing, because there's just so much that feels like it doesn't want it to work for you. And so
Yeah.
a lot of these conversations have been, well, how do we make healing work for us? How does it
Mhm.
feel like we can apply it to our rituals, our routine, our work, our life?
Mhm.
And I think that a part of it starts with boundaries. I would love to hear what you think about that of,
Mm,
why do you think boundaries can be so important or supportive to this healing journey?
mm.
And why is that so challenging for women of color and melanated women as well?
So okay, I'm going to start with the boundaries piece, and I'm going to
Yes.
go back to your visual because I loved your visual, to bring it all together. So boundaries are actually about safety.
Mm,
Boundaries are about, I am putting this thing in place so I can feel safe, so I can feel protected, which also means boundaries are statements, not suggestions. And it means your boundaries can change. It's what we spoke to earlier. Your boundaries can change depending on the season that you're in, because safety may look different for you in different seasons of your life. And historically, melanated women haven't had the privilege, well, safety hasn't been a privilege that we can employ. And so it is often very hard for us to name boundaries or set boundaries because let's be honest, when was the last time we were asked, do we feel safe? And what do we need to feel safe? Have we even actually asked ourselves that? And so
mhm.
boundaries can be really hard to navigate when you don't even know what safety means and feels like for you.
If you've
And
never
you haven't,
experienced
and
it.
you've never experienced it or been asked. And
Mhm.
it's a space where it's like you don't get to ask that question. Like people don't often care if we feel safe or not. They care about our productivity. Um, and so if we go back to your visual of if you're on this healing journey and it feels like you're swimming upstream. And so I want you to imagine like being in a creek, like being in a stream, and there's usually like there's rocks on either side. There's some areas we can kind of get your footing. There's like little tree limbs that are kind of hanging from the sides, and you were just going down this river, right? And all the water is rushing towards you. It is rushing and rushing and rushing, and you are trying to get your footing, and it's coming over your face, and it's hard for you to breathe. How do I keep pushing through in this healing journey? What if you don't? What if, when the water gets over your head and you start feeling overwhelmed, you grab one of the trees and you just kind of pull to the side of the river for a moment and you take a break and you pause? That's also connected to your safety. I don't feel safe as I'm pushing through, moving through, having to go through, but I can hold on to the side of this for a moment and pause and take a break. And what that can look like is, so I'm going to say no. Do I have capacity to do this thing? Yes. Do I need to do this thing? No. Just because I can doesn't mean I should. I can say no to this request. I can say no to this. Oh, you're the one that always handles. I'm good. I can say no to going out and hanging out because I know I just need to lay on the couch for a night. And I know that changes depending on what your boss is asking of you, what your kids are asking of you, what your family is asking of you. And that kind of goes back to the Superwoman cape. What I'm saying is sometimes we do have to wear some of the capes some of the time, but you don't have to wear all the capes all the time. You don't have to wear the friendship cape, the work cape, the family cape, the sister cape, the auntie cape, strong friend cape. You don't have to wear all the capes all the time. And so if your boundaries are actually about safety and starting to figure out what you need for yourself as you're trying to like bulldoze through this healing journey while you're in this river, go grab a limb on the side of it and just pause for a second and just kind of float. And let the water kind of take you for a minute, but you're holding on to something. You're not trying to push through, you're just kind of being present for a moment. You get to pause. Even in your healing journey, you get to just pause. Because if you don't, that creates healing fatigue. And when we have healing fatigue, we get to a point where you're like, you know what? I don't, this is too hard. I'm just going to be who I am. I don't care anymore. I'm not going to try. It didn't work. It didn't work. And so that's kind of how I initially think about boundaries. I know we can like go into a full conversation around like, this is how you set a boundary. This is what this means. So this is what it looks like. But I don't want us to get so cerebral about it that we miss the heart of what boundaries are about. And it's about you feeling safe. And so before we get into all these other tangible ways to express them, I invite people to think about, what makes me feel safe? When do
Mm,
I feel safe? When was the last time I felt safe? That in and of itself might take a few months to really answer. And that's okay.
yeah, I love that so much. And as we're talking about safety, I want to acknowledge, because we know that a lot of the folks listening to us are organization leaders that are really thinking about bringing this back to their organizations and teams. Like, even if your intention is to create safety, especially for Black women and melanated women within your organization, you may not ever be able to create a fully safe environment, because
Absolutely.
that is almost, if not impossible. And so as you're exploring what it means to create safety within your organization, think about what it means to create a space that is safe enough for
Mm-hmm.
someone to feel comfortable, to feel seen, to feel respected, to feel valued
Mm-hmm.
beyond these metrics that
Mm-hmm.
we are talking about. Do not consider our full being, do not
Mm-hmm.
support us fully. And again, that's a whole other conversation which we will have
Part
later
two, part
on.
three,
Part
part
3,
four.
part 5. But I want to acknowledge that, because as someone that is not a person of color that may be wanting to step into this, or you are a person of color and you're trying to create these environments for your team members in your organizations, like
Mm-hmm.
being really mindful of this. This isn't about now you put on the cape of now like doing this for other people, but it's more about stepping back and being able
Mm-hmm.
to give someone and to reclaim their own understanding of safety, their
Mm-hmm.
own understanding, asking those questions. Well, what makes you feel safe enough to
Mm-hmm.
be here with us? And then how do you honor that, right? I talk about
Mm-hmm.
that so much with leaders. If you're going to open up conversations for people to want to share so you can understand them, be ready and willing to commit to what they're asking of you. If
Mm-hmm.
you are asking, especially Black women, if you're asking a Black woman in your organization to be vulnerable and share everything that they need, and then you're not willing to provide those things that they are asking for, then don't ask in the first place because you are causing more harm. And
Mm-hmm.
so what do we need to do? And I'm sad I'm seeing the time. I think we're getting close to that, but I think that
Sure.
does bring us to the
Yeah, I can.
section we like to talk about with which is around, the individual responsibilities we hold
Mm-hmm.
as individuals in our healing journey, and also the organizational
Mm-hmm.
responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
as you're putting together, you've been, calling people into this healing journey and holding these events and spaces for people. What do you want to call organization
Mm-hmm.
leaders into as
Mm-hmm.
an organization, and individuals to think about as they can engage with the
Mm-hmm.
retiring Superwoman movement?
Well, you actually named it already. When you can't necessarily go to someone and say, "What makes you feel safe?" Because people are gonna be like, "Okay, what's happening here? I just came in here to have my regular weekly check-in. Like, what are we doing?" What you can do is ask questions like, "What can I do to make you feel respected? What can I do to make you feel seen? What can I do to make sure that you feel protected in this space?" Like, these are questions that you start to embed into your weekly check-ins with your staff, with
Mm,
your team, with people. You start to ask them that question consistently. And no, initially, most people may start with nothing because they don't trust you yet. You're going to have to build trust with them. And then when they do decide to open up, you take that gift and you hold it so dear, because that is such a
mm,
precious thing that they just gave you. They gave you a piece of them. So I need you to honor that they gave you a piece of them. And so now you protect that. And so, to your point, when someone tells you what they need, do it, or at least talk to them about how you can play a role in doing that. And before
mhm,
you get into any of these pieces, ask someone, do you have capacity for a conversation around respect? Do you
mhm,
have capacity for a conversation around feeling seen? Do you have capacity for a conversation around what I can do to be a better manager, a better supervisor, a better CEO? And if they say no, okay, let me know when you have capacity. I would like to know what I can do better, because oftentimes people want to help, but they want to help on their terms and their timeline. If
yep,
you are offering to help, it is not about your terms and your timeline. It is about what that person actually needs. And so make space for what they need and when they'd be willing to offer that information to you. And when they tell you, honor that and be honest and realistic. Because if they say, well, I'm going to need a higher, I'm going to need a raise, I'm going to need people start respecting the work that I do, don't jump in. Oh, I can absolutely do that. Name, I hear you. Okay, that's going to take some time because that's a cultural thing you're asking for. So,
mhm,
what can I do culturally to start shifting that? If we're in meetings, what does that look like for you? There's also this beautiful, amazing thing called the internet. And you
mhm,
can Google a lot of these questions and get some tangible resources, so it then doesn't require the person who is being harmed to do the burden of telling you how to heal them. And so
mm,
all of that gets to play into it. And does it require more work? Yes. But because you're the manager, you get paid more to figure these things out. You're the leader. So you get paid more to figure out how to do this. This is where your work comes in. So earn your paycheck and create more protected spaces, create safer spaces, create spaces that are more respectful. And it starts by asking the person that you say you want to help how they need that help.
mm. Oof, yes, absolutely. No, absolutely. This is so important. And I want to name, like, for organizations that are looking for spaces that maybe this isn't something that your managers, right, are equipped to do. don't push managers just because you want to check a box or you want to now be on this movement. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love every organization to have a path towards healing within their organization, but we have to be very conscious of not everyone's going to have the training and capacity. I
Mm-hmm.
love that you named us to hold space in that way. And so, if organizations are really committed to providing spaces for, Black women, melanated women to really focus on their healing, or folks that are marginalized within these organizations and have not received this support, looking
Mm-hmm.
towards the Retiring Superwoman movement as a place to support them. And I just want to name supporting them in guiding them there and also funding them. So
Funding
there is
is also a
financial
wonderful
support.
way. Absolutely. Absolutely. Both of those things are necessary and can be true. And so looking at this healing work, and it starts to get embedded into the DNA and the tapestry of your organization in the same way where, okay, we have these new updates to our computers, we have these new policies and procedures we need to follow to stay in compliance. How are we being respectful? How are we creating protected spaces? That starts to weave into the DNA of our organization as well. And so it doesn't become an afterthought or a response or a reactive training all of us are going to do because someone was harmed. We actually start to become proactive and start teaching people how to engage with each other's humanity in a better way. And to your point, that does require training.
Mhm.
And you can talk to Manuela and or myself about, or both of us, we could do something wonderful together for your organization. But yeah,
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And as I shared earlier, think about it as preventative. If you're someone, if your
absolutely.
organizations are worried about retention ratings and burnout, you're going into a high stress cycle. You have a huge conference coming up. You're going into a huge strategy session. Maybe you're getting a new CEO. Oh, as
Mm-hmm.
organization leaders, areas and times of the years that cause high levels of stress. And adding one more wellness day is lovely. I mean, give folks as many wellness days as they need to be able to take days for themselves. And also, that can only go so far if the culture itself isn't
Right.
ready to embrace
Right.
these new, yeah, I love this idea of a
Don't do the thing that
tapestry.
cause them to take the wellness day. Stop doing the thing. Stop harming me so I have to take the wellness day.
Let's start there. Let's start there. Yes, absolutely. So continue to explore it, continue to think about it, be willing and open, and also be really conscious of what you can do in house and what you need to look for spaces that are authentically creating spaces
Yeah.
in a way that's trauma informed, that's supportive, and so these are small moments that you can start thinking about. I love the
Mm,
call to curiosity. You've
yeah.
said that so many times throughout our conversation, really being grounded as an individual in your own curiosity about what
Yeah.
serves you, but as an organization, staying curious about what is really serving and
Yeah.
supporting our organizations here.
Could I add one more thing
Please,
to that? So for the
please.
managers, this
Mm-hmm.
also means you giving yourself permission to know that you also need some healing and you may be triggered by things as well. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
not just about you protecting a lot of other people. It's also about, well, where can you be receiving support and care and protection and respect? Because I guarantee a lot of the people who are in mid management or in leadership positions are often melanated women who are like, great, now I got to take care of everyone else here as well. And so I also want to name, you get to ask yourself these same questions. You get to name these requests and these needs of whoever your boss is. And if you are the head person, I guarantee you also have triggers because you're human and I'm sure you've experienced some kind of trauma in some way. How are you not recreating that and putting that on your team? How are you doing your healing work? And so you normalize healing and taking breaks and taking care. So other people on staff sees like, well, if the boss is doing it, that gives me permission to do it as well. And so your work is not just figuring it out for others, but also, most importantly, firstly, figuring it out for you so you can
Mm.
be a better model for others.
Yes, 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 yes. Take it all in, my friends. Take it all in. Oh, thank you so much. I do wanna, before we hop off, just ask you one final questions I love to
Sure.
ask all of our guests, which is living a life con fuerza is about reclaiming our inner power to live in alignment with our values. How are you
Mhm.
choosing to live a life con fuerza, and what does living a life con fuerza, which is with
Mm.
strength in Spanish, mean to you?
It means not needing external things to prove I am strong.
Mm.
It means knowing that I have choice over how I engage in the world. I don't need to yell and force and win the argument and win the fight to prove that I am strong because I know that I am. And so when I work from a place of I know who I am, I know my being, I can respond differently to you because I don't have to prove a thing to you anymore because I already know what I am. Because oftentimes we get into fights and arguments and frustrations because we're trying to prove the thing that we're telling people we are. Living a life of strength means I don't have to prove it to you because I know. So you can either know it with me or not know it, but that doesn't change what I know. And that's something I am constantly working on. That is, one of my 5, 17, 15, 20-year things that, that timeline, I'm still working on that. But I'm in the awareness phase of it right now.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Such a beautiful answer. Thank you so much for being here. This was so wonderful, so rich, and I thank you for normalizing so much of how normal it is for us to constantly be in this evolving learning and evolving healing, and that we are continuously getting the choice to work on finding what works for us, but that it's possible. And thank you for creating the spaces to do that. I'm so excited. I can't wait to hopefully experience one of your events is so soon. And for all of you that are joining, please check out our event pages on the Notion dashboard. I will link it on the comments below. And if you're watching the recording either on YouTube or here, please make sure to comment there as well and share your reflections. I'm so excited to hear what you think. Before we do hop off, I want to let everyone know I myself am taking a little bit of rest and break the next 2 weeks to be with family and friends and enjoy a bit of the summer. And so we will be taking a 2 week pause on Wisdom Wednesdays, and we'll be coming back the first week of August to talk about negotiations and how
Mm,
negotiations can be a supportive way to care for our well being too, knowing our worth, knowing how to ask for that, and how we can make it work for us. So join me at the first week of August for that conversation, and join us on LinkedIn or on Notion or Instagram if you have any other questions. Ashante, any other final remarks before we hop off?
thank you so much for having me here. Take what you need from this conversation and take your time. Take your time.
Hmm. We'll close with that. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your week.